Good morning, friends. Ash here, NPMP News. It's March 27th, 2026. And we have many things happening all at the same time so as to distract us from what really is happening. Right. We have a president who is compromised, in my view. There's several, if not two, at least two different doubles of the president walking around for what some people have claimed maybe over the last year almost. So the real president, no one knows who they are, where they are, if he's still alive, if he's not alive, who's running the country. If he's is not alive is unclear at this time, although it appears to be Black Sun as well as dragon families on the other side fighting each other. And then if you go beyond Earth, you're talking about reptilians who were probably enslaved along with grays to the Anunnaki, if you believe that. Are we dealing with Anunnaki who have been here, who have been sleeping here, right? People say, oh, well, they found, Hillary was talking about finding Gilgamesh's tomb and all this stuff, and that they found him, right? You ever see those big red giant in the tomb video that may or may not be real? We know giants are real from just not only from the skeletal remains that have been found, but also from ancient indigenous stories, right? If you go to the Lovelock Caves in Nevada, the whole outside of the cave is scorched where the cave was burned, right? Somebody lit a massive fire by that cave a long time ago. And some people think it was the killed giants that were inside that cave, hiding, who were feeding off of the indigenous a long time ago, right? They talk about red-haired giants in some of the indigenous stories. If you can go back and look into that as well. So, what are we doing here? What's really going on? Why is Iran so important? Is there a Stargate there? That's what I'm assuming. There's something very valuable there that either is of a resonant level that helps Earth, or that someone wants to take over that energy portal, whatever is existing in Iran. Iran might be where the Garden of Eden is, some people think, right? Iran might be the Fertile Crescent. Iran might be the place where, although some people think that was in that part of Africa where mankind first started off, right? Trump has a problem now, right? What is that problem? Well, he's dealing with a country that has a 1,000,000-man army, right? Which is about the size of what your army is in terms of manpower, maybe even bigger. I think Iran's army is bigger than ours. Okay, you took care of their navy and they don't have much air force, but how are you going to go in on the ground to a country that has 1,000,000 people waiting for you? Do you think you're ready to do that? Is that something that's going to become worse than Iraq? Oh, yeah. That's going to be. That's going to make Iraq look like a cakewalk. Right? Because a lot of those cities and towns you went through in Iraq were small. They weren't highly populated. There weren't as nearly the amount of fighters who are sophisticated in terms of the weaponry and the training that they have. This is a whole different ball game, right? Trump backs off strike deadline with new 10-day pause in Tehran as Tehran threatens 1 million fighters and nuclear bombs. So they're saying, come on in. We got 1,000,000 dudes waiting for you here. You think you can handle it? Come on down. I don't think we can. Not that I don't have a lot of confidence in the United States soldiers, but that's too big of an army to take on at the way we're set up right now. Right? We're not going to win that war, is my guess. We're going to lose it. And we'll lose it bad because, and when you do lose that war, you'll be so hurt by it that it'll take a generation to recover almost in terms of weaponry, manpower. So Trump's not going to bomb their energy infrastructure until at least early April after extending the deadline. So these people are saying, he's negotiating with Tehran. Tehran's saying, we're not negotiating with you at all. U.S. removes Iran's top 2 negotiators from kill list for now. New York Post. Senate passes deal to fund DHS without Democratic demands to reform ICE. So that's good news, because you shouldn't have to reform ICE. These people are using funding for other, funding for different things under the government, right? And holding the government hostage, saying, hey, if you don't listen to our demands, the Democrats, we're not going to fund DHS. You won't be able to fly anymore. We'll shut down the entire flying industry in the United States. These people have done things like this before, which causes a lot of problems to Democrats, right? Why would you do that? Why would you not fund certain programs and throw the whole country into chaos over and over again? Is that a party that you think cares about human beings? No. Neither one of the parties does. They're all both working together against you this whole time, and you're not seeing it. I'm not sure how you're not seeing it, but you're not seeing it. So DHS should be funded now. There should be a rule. You can't use things like this to get your way. You can't not fund major different parts of the government because you don't like what the president's doing. Right? That shouldn't be allowed, because you're hurting the consumer. You're hurting the American people the most when you do that. New Vatican Bank chief sparks Illuminati takeover claims. Deep state taking over the Catholic Church. What do you mean they're taking it over? They've always had it. The Vatican Church has been compromised since before the Crusades. Pretty much. What happened with the Vatican, right? Well, the Vatican Bank, what does it do? Well, the allegation is that that Obama and different presidents have accounts there. That leaders are bribed through the Vatican Bank. Can anyone go in and check the Vatican Bank accounts and see if that's true? Does George Bush Jr. have an account at the Vatican Bank, or did he? Did Obama? Did Clinton? The allegation is they did. So why can't somebody go in and find those files? Why is the Vatican Bank so secretive? Well, that's another story. What about the things that the Vatican Bank, you don't even know they have in their storage facilities underneath the Vatican? They have all kinds of religious texts and books that that are held in secret from the public, right? I think there's a device down there that apparently you can see angels and demons with it. They have all kinds of secretive things down there, right? They're not showing you. The man named to be the next president of the Vatican Bank has sparked wild claims that an ancient conspiracy has taken direct control of the Catholic Church. Francois Pauli has been elected to serve as the president of the supervisory board for the Institute for the Works of Religion, the official name for the financial group in Vatican City, which manages the church's money, property, and charitable works. Pauli, who has served on the Vatican's board since 2024, will now lead the 7-member panel that supervises the bank's strategic guidelines, makes sure international financial standards are followed, and oversees day-to-day operations. However, conspiracy theorists immediately seized on Pauli's ties to the powerful Rothschild group, one of the most famous international banking families in history that has been alleged to be part of the secret society known as the Illuminati. Yeah, well, the Rothschilds were the ones that give the Vatican Bank that loan a long time ago, right? Forgot when that was. When was that again? The Rothschilds' loan to the Holy See, right, was arranged in 1832. It took place in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars, right, when the church was broke. This loan agreed on was for a sum of £400,000, which is the equivalent in 2023 of about £3.7 million. A second loan occurred during the pontificate of Pope Pius IX in the early 1850s with the same members of the Rothschild family. After the collapse of Giuseppe Mazzini's short-lived revolutionary Roman Republic and the restoration of the Papal States. Okay? So after the Napoleonic Wars, which cost a lot of money, right? Napoleon's little man syndrome. He almost took over huge swaths, right, of the And Napoleon was such a brilliant tactician, by the way, Napoleon, that when he would place his guns in such a way in his troops that he would just annihilate you, and you had no chance, because he saw all the angles of a thing, right? He saw every which way that the thing could go, and he had every possibility was planned for, right? And when you operate that way, you cannot really lose, because if you have the right troops and you have all the pieces, right? Because you're putting all the pieces on the chessboard in such a way that I can't lose. You can't see what I'm doing till it's too late. And that's why he was such a brilliant tactician. He could place his men and troops in such a way that he would just utterly destroy you. And there was nothing you could do about it. Until, of course, he met the Russians. Right? Until, like some others in the future, he tried to take something over that he could not take. Because he was out-thought, right? He was out-maneuvered. So the Vatican Bank has always been corrupt. It's been corrupt since its inception, as far as I'm concerned. And it's always been corrupt. It's part of how the control mechanism that is used over world leaders. Unfortunately, this Air Force vet that was pushed into the subway station tracks by guess what? An illegal alien in New York has died. So this guy lives through probably one of the most dangerous wars that mankind's ever seen, only to die by some illegal alien pushing him into the subway tracks. Do you think that's a great way to go out? I don't. In other words, he shouldn't have died that way, right? He should have died of natural causes, but instead you've allowed all these illegal aliens to come in. Some of them are mentally ill. Guess what? They're killing people. Mind control assassins inside the CIA's chilling mind control program that turned ordinary Americans into assassins. You can also watch the movie that's called Men Staring at Goats. Was also talking about this program, right, where you're using your mind to kill people, to telekinesis, right, things of that nature, to kill people, right. This was also used by the CIA to look for certain look for certain areas, remote viewing, things like that. There's somebody doing some noise outside. I apologize if you're hearing it. There's always something going on around here. And it's usually every time I try to start doing a show that somebody shows up starting to chuck around some loud things and do stuff. So I might have to take a quick break because it's a little bit loud. Trump moles sending 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East amid peace talks. Why would you send 10,000 more troops into an area that where you already have peace talks going on? That doesn't really make any sense, does it? So we had another food truck show up nearby where I live, near a park where kids play, right? There was a big truck. I won't embarrass the company by naming them, but I might, right? And what they do is they pull up around 9 o'clock in the morning and they sit there idling this truck in a no parking zone right outside of a park where kids are playing. So in other words, you're using some kind of thing inside this to run your machines inside that you're using to cook the crap that you're cooking, and it's polluting my neighborhood. It's polluting my environment, right? It's polluting the park area where kids are playing. So I noticed that the truck was parked in a no parking zone. So you know what I did? I called 311. I said, hey, this guy's illegally parked. Which doesn't have anything to do with an illegal food truck, but it has to do with a vehicle that's illegally parked. And guess what? Within 3 hours, I got a notice from 311 that, hey, not only did we find the violation and it was in fact a violation, we gave the person a summons, a ticket. Great. So that was day one. The next day, the truck came back. I called the cops again. All right, I did the 311 again. Same thing. Boom. Guy got a second ticket. The third day, the guy came back again. Well, guess what? I'm a fucking litigious motherfucker. I just keep on doing the same thing I'm doing. I call 311 again. I make another ticket. The guy gets another summons. That's his third ticket. Guess what? The fourth day, never came back. You know why? because those tickets add up, baby. I think they're $75 a pop. Do the math, right? Seven, that's 200 and something. That's almost $250 worth of tickets you just got in 3 days. You can't afford that. Plus, it's points against your license if you keep racking up all. So the guy left and he ain't coming back. Why? Because he knows someone's watching that spot. Trump's going to add his signature now to U.S. currency. Officials said the first $100 notes featuring Trump's signature alongside Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will begin printing in June. Why are they doing that? I wonder why he's doing that, right? Why would you put your currency on the money for when most times that's not how it's been in the past? Are you making a new money? Where's the new money we were supposed to have seen? Where's the med beds we were supposed to have got? Can you imagine if your parent is mentally ill, or I don't know, your parents are dying right now, your parents are old, you're sick in the hospital, there's people in hospice dying every day. Where's the med beds? Why aren't you saving these people's lives? Why aren't you putting through free energy? Well, because it's going to collapse the whole system that we're invested in, and he doesn't want to do that, not on his watch. He wants to be the hero, right? Here's the golden-haired guy. Where's the white-haired Trump? Doesn't anyone notice this? And then you get these people like Nino Rodriguez and them still talking about EBS, still talking about it's any day, right? It's going to be the EBS. Oh, yeah, they're in Gitmo. They've all been tried in Gitmo. They're in Gitmo now. They're being moved to Gitmo. They're on the way to Gitmo. They're in Gitmo. No, they're not. There's a whole press center in Gitmo. If they were in Gitmo, you'd be hearing about it every fucking day. Hey, this guy's on trial today. He's going to be hung tomorrow in a military tribunal. You're not seeing anything. Why aren't there any military tribunals? Why weren't there any in his whole first term? Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals allows feds to use crowd control munitions on Portland anti-ICE protesters. So at first they had said you can't do that. Yeah, you can. How am I supposed to protect the facility? It used to be when there was protest, they would be forced to be at least like a block away from these places or so, right? It's a certain amount of... That way they can't be directly attacked. You can't stop the flow of traffic going in and out of the facility like these people are doing. That's because these are Democratic-controlled cities and states that are allowing the protesters to be right on top of the facility where they can block the facilities. And then to not give the people inside the facility any way to protect themselves is really a crime, in my eyes. Even the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says you have to allow the cops to use crowd control munitions. Otherwise, how am I supposed to control the crowd if it becomes violent? What if there's people in the crowd firing into my facility with bullets? Or setting the facility on fire, which has happened more than one time. I'm not allowed to protect myself and the people inside? Of course I am. And of course, this elderly vet died from injuries, unfortunately, like I just said. What do you tell that guy's family? Sorry about that. Sorry we let so many illegal aliens in and one of them killed your father. Sorry. Or your grandpa, who served his country valiantly, right? And should have lived out his days in peace, comfort, and amongst his loving family or friends or whoever. Instead got pushed into subway tracks and killed. Right? Like a piece of garbage thrown into the subway tracks by an illegal alien who should have never been here in the first place. And what you're seeing on the east side is they've created a mosque out of a storefront. It's not a mosque in the technical sense. It's not a place of worship. But these people are treating it as such. They're bathing on the sidewalk. Some of these guys, they're using the sidewalk as a toilet, as their bathing place. They're stacking up their e-delivery bikes. This is one of the things that the city did so these people could stay here, these illegal aliens, and make money, because there's no real jobs for them. So they say, okay, we'll put up a bunch of scaffolds. These guys can do that. It's just putting a little bunch of metal pieces together. They can do that. They can deliver food on bikes and with illegal accounts that they're using, which shouldn't be allowed. We'll let a ton of food carts go all over the city. We'll double the amount of food carts that there are. So that way they can make their shawarma cart anywhere they want, or their Indian food, and stink up the city and right? Forget about a clean city. We're never going to that back and say that word again. There's never going to be. You never hear a green city out of these people again. If you do hear them talk about it, just say, hey, what about all those food carts you allow? Those use gas-generated machines that power them, right? They have to burn gasoline, all of them, right? Which causes pollution. It's just like somebody burning a car engine. Same thing, it's just a smaller combustible engine. Hundreds of delivery drivers hanging outside East Village Mosque are overwhelming locals. They've already forced 2 businesses to completely close down because they're just mulling around on the street there and people can't come and go from these businesses. They don't feel safe and comfortable. One was a bagel store. How does a bagel store go out of business in the East Village? It shouldn't. Well, it shouldn't because you're allowing people to congregate all over the sidewalks over there and you're not doing anything about it, which is illegal, right? It's a public nuisance crime. Like I told you, you're not allowed to congregate on street corners like that. That used to be highly ticketed offenses in the city. They used to call it public, whatever. You call it, I forgot what the name of it is. I'll think of it in a second. You're not allowed to just hang out on street corners in large groups of people bothering everybody who goes by. You're not allowing the traffic to move. Plus all these food carts are blocking sidewalk traffic up. There's too many illegal aliens here, and there's too many people here delivering food in New York. That's fact. Plus, this isn't even a mosque. It's a converted storefront. It should be shuttered, and the people should be moved out of that area immediately, along with all those bikes that are blocking the sidewalks up and blocking other businesses and blocking parking spaces on that street. Chuck Norris passed away, so people were even joking that Chuck Norris finally negotiated a deal with death. Right? Finally, death got a hold of one of the toughest dudes out there, pretty much, right? You ever watch Chuck Norris when he was young doing some of those kicks he was doing? It sounds like a piece of lightning bolt hitting you. I wouldn't want to get hit full force by Chuck Norris in his prime with one of those kicks, right? Dangerous individual. Remember as a kid watching Chuck fight Bruce Lee in the movie theater? My dad used to take me to see all the Bruce Lee movies when I was a kid. I was, like a lot of kids, a big Bruce Lee fan growing up. I even had the kung fu slippers and shit. I was no joke, man. I was thinking about taking kung fu. Instead, I took some karate, some judo. My friend took kung fu, and I remember watching the guy make him do, stand against the wall, do some squats like that till your legs start shaking and you collapse. That's what they used to do in that class. That's why I stopped doing it. I didn't want to do that class anymore. Those wall sits would kill your legs, man. Sifu would have you doing those till your legs started shaking, literally. So imagine that kind of pain, how long it takes for that to affect. But after a while, you do those wall sits 3 or 4 times a week, your legs will be like freaking iron. Literally like iron. Here's the Earth battery secret I was talking about. There's a YouTube video you can watch. The Earth has its own resonant frequency, right? There's an energy that comes from the Earth itself that you can tap into if you're a farmer. Right, I have to combine 2 metals to do it, right? I think it's copper and I can't remember the other one. Zinc or aluminum maybe? One of those. There's 2 metals, right? Look into copper very much so because, like I said, the electroculture movement's coming back. People are realizing you don't need these harsh pesticides on your land, on your food, on your crops. You can use the resonant frequency of Earth itself to help you grow your crops and to help keep pests away from your crops. West Coast is the mess coast. I'm afraid for Nick Shirley's safety after California fraud expose. Some of these people are super serious. If I was him, I'd be carrying some kind of weapon, at least in bear spray, something. Preferably a firearm, because, when you start fucking around with people's money like this, and some of these people aren't just Somali, they're other organized crime groups from other countries. Possibly Russian, possibly other, right? And so when you start to deal with heavier cats like this, who are much more sophisticated in what they can do to you, you need to be extremely careful. And plus, they know who this kid is now. He needs to be careful, and he needs security for sure. You shouldn't need security as press, but this guy does. And now you're seeing, the mainstream press have to cover what he's covering, or else they're going to look stupid. The people are already saying, "Hey, Channel 2 and 4 and 7, why did it take you so long to figure this out?" When this kid who has a quarter of the resources or an eighth of the resources that you have, no backup, no security, no nothing, how come, no big amount of funds, how come this kid is uncovering all this fraud that you can't seem to uncover at all? Because you're not uncovering it on purpose, right? Please be careful. Some of these people are serious. They don't want to be exposed. They'll kill you over this shit, right? Because they're making millions of dollars doing it. And when you start to affect people's money like that, they will do something. They might take serious, they might do some serious shit to you, right? You got to be careful. Here's a Jew singing the Quran beautifully, but Muslims panic when he translates it. I think this is the video I was talking about, right? Where he's translating these passages from the Quran that are basically saying, hey, you could steal the infidel's woman and rape her if you want, right? You could take them as slaves as long as they're not Muslims. There's similar tropes in other religious books of the old books you can go back, right? Hey, it's wartime. Yeah, as long as these people aren't of your religious group, you could take them as a slave, you could abuse them, you could do whatever you want to them. Well, that was basically par for the course back in the day. What do you think the Romans did? How do you think the Romans had the huge army that they had? They would forcibly conscript the slaves and the people that who they conquered and forced them to be soldiers in their army or kill them. What would you do, right? If the guy says, hey, either you work in the army with us or I'll just cut your fucking head off. What do you want to do? You're 26 years old. What do you think? You done living life yet? Probably not, right? You're in the prime of your life at 25, 26. You don't want your head chopped off, do you? No. All right, I'll be your soldier for a while. Sure. Why not? I could rape and pillage at will. I can get some free shit, some training. I have a good place in society. Why not? Why wouldn't you want to do it, right? I mean, you don't have much choice. So this Jew is singing these portions of the Quran to Muslims, many of whom don't even know what he's saying. They don't even speak the language he's speaking. And he's a Jew that's speaking that language to him, which I think is funny. And he's saying, hey, look at your Bible. Look at what your holy book says you could do. Isn't that amazing? It sounds great when I'm singing it to you, but it's talking about raping and pillaging your whole town and killing everybody and taking the women as slaves. Sounds good when I'm singing it, right? But the literal translation's a little more nasty. Trump plans to send ICE agents to airports. He was doing that, and now all of a sudden they say, we don't want that. Why? Well, because they're also starting to find some people that are on the list that need to be deported, and they don't want that. There was this big thing, this Guatemalan family was caught in the airport and the woman was crying. Well, she was here illegally. They were looking for them for a long time when they found them. The question is, how are they affording to travel 4 or 5 people in a family travel all over the United States for? How are they affording to pay for that? And why are they being allowed to do it with improper ID? Experienced NYPD cops see little incentive to stay with department if Mamdani cuts overtime. So these cops don't want to stop the overtime. Guys, I'm going to take a quick break for this noise. I apologize. I'll be right back in a moment. It's starting to get bad. And I just want to give a little break to hopefully it'll stop, okay? So I appreciate you. I'll be right back. Sorry for the early break, but there's a lot of noise right now. I'll be right back in one moment. You can, in the meantime, do some burpees, sit-ups, and push-ups, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, friends. Sorry about that break, but there was some idiot outside doing some stupid shit. That's usually what it is around here, so that's been taken care of for now until the next episode. Who said that, right? What was that song? Till the next episode. Can't remember. Snoop Dogg? How can you run a police department without overtime? You can't. You have to have overtime. These cops need overtime. Although the NYPD gets way too much overtime, in my view. So the cops don't want to stay if they can't get OT. You're going to need OT. You need the cops. Netanyahu is now claiming that Israel acted alone against Iran's South Pars gas field. He's saying Trump didn't tell him to do it. He did it on his own. Well, you just made the oil prices spike by doing that, right? And there's people have made trades that were right before Trump's moves that made them a lot of money, where people are saying there's insider tradings going on. Iran strikes Kuwait refinery for a second straight day. So they're hitting, somebody's blowing up all the oil all over the world, right? Why? Well, they want to starve you again. That's why. Well, how do you get your food? Vehicles that use oil, mostly, right? Boats, diesel trains, trucks, vans, smaller planes. I mean, that's how you get your food, right? By boat, by plane, by train, by car. Those things all use oil. Mostly. They need oil to run. You can't run a internal combustion engine without oil. It doesn't run. The engine will seize up after a time. Try not refilling your oil for a while and drive your car cross country. See how far you go. You'll go for a while. Nowadays they got the newer synthetic oils that can go like 2,000, 3,000 miles, right? So, but at some point you got to change it, right? Goiás becomes first Brazilian state to sign minerals pact with the U.S. So there's parts of Brazil of signing pacts that are starting to break away from Brazil itself, maybe, right? Of course, Brazil is an incredibly rich country in terms of oil and gas and other things. I think it has quite a bit of gold as well. Senate Homeland Security panel advances Mullen nomination to lead the DHS. So Noam's out. You know, she spent $20,000 in horse rentals, Noam, to get all those pictures. And she had the hair perfectly blown out. First of all, if you're a real operator, you would never wear your hair like that in the field. You'd have it tied back if you were a woman, I would think, in a ponytail or a bun or something, so it's not flapping around all over the place. You're firing a weapon where your hair could get caught in the breech of that weapon. You don't want that, right? Most operators don't have beautiful locks like... I mean, she's a gorgeous woman, I think. She's beautiful, no question. But for that role, that's not what we're looking for. We don't want you all... your hair all blown out perfect, riding a horse with a semi-automatic rifle. I mean, it looks good, but it doesn't look tough. Kevin Spacey settles his alleged sexual assault civil cases, so he's broke with nothing. But is he arrested? No. Did he horribly rape a child in the past? I'm assuming, yeah, multiple. Was he ever punished for it? No. That's what all these kids are sitting out here saying. All these Gen Y and Zers and millennials are looking at the stuff coming out going, this is what these scummy people were doing before we were even born? Why are these people still walking around free? Where's the public hangings? You're starting to hear even young kids talking about what's going on. Like, why are we not seeing people being publicly hung? That's a great question. I've been asking it for the last 6 years. That's a great question. I've actually been asking it for the last 12 or the last 10 since Trump's been in, right? Trump got in 2016. We're 10 years later. We're still in the same situation we were 10 years ago. What's different? A bunch of pedophiles got caught? Great, but where's the major people who are doing this who are running these rings of sexual slavery rings and child, and human trafficking rings and drug rings and fentanyl rings that are in this country being run by Americans? No one's touching those people. That's what Mike Gill was talking about with Dick Anagost and these people who are running, not only are they running drug treatment centers where the addicts go, but then they're also pumping fentanyl into the country and using things like casinos and Gill is alleging Planet Fitness is a money laundering operation as well that these people own. Korean won plunges to new 17-year low against the US dollar as Iran crisis persists. Silver and gold should be spiking, not going down in this environment. So that's the won is, of course, their currency. But I was just noting that silver and gold is also going down in a time when it should be going the other way, right? Where What's happening is that there's China, Russia, and all the major countries are snapping up as much silver as they can because there's not going to be enough. There already isn't enough. You can't make the data centers without silver. You can't make weapons without silver. You can't make, a rocket that blows up buildings and a smart rocket or anything like that without silver in it. You can't make a smart car without silver. You can't make solar panels without silver. You can't make a computer without silver and gold, right? So there's not enough silver. And what's happening is for the future, countries are seeing that, hey, we're going to need a lot of silver. We're going to need a lot of data centers and all this stuff. How are we going to... We're going to have to start approaching some of these companies directly and trying to buy all their silver up for multiple years into the future. That's how much silver we need. Well, if that's the case, then why is silver going down? It shouldn't be, right? Or why is it being affected in such a way as you've cut half of its... It used to be it was at $120 an ounce. It's now at $70, $69.20 an ounce, down 35 cents. Which is basically flat, right? Why is it so flat? Well, the market just opened, but, this isn't a real price anymore. The COMEX has been found out to be fake, right? The paper contracts that you're issuing for people to buy certain amounts of silver, you're selling the same bars to multiple people. It's illegal. It's similar to what is being done with our currency. You're loaning out 9 out of every $10 to other people at interest. You're printing money and then lending it out at interest, which is illegal, right? Because the money isn't real. It's fake. It's just being printed out on a monopoly money machine that you control. Trump does nothing to stop this arbitrage. He's allowing it to go on. He's allowing the COMEX market to be destroyed and the silver price to be manipulated by overseas bankers, and he's doing nothing to protect U.S. silver, as far as I could see. Postmaster General, the United States Post Office is going to run out of money in 1 year. Remember when Hunter Biden was talking about asset stripping the post office and selling off its assets? Remember that? Constitutional reform in El Salvador would allow life imprisonment. I'm surprised it doesn't already allow that. What happens if somebody commits a murder there? You just death penalty them, I guess? Netanyahu wants ground component necessary for regime change in Iran. How are you going to get these guys really out of there where they're already... There's no other way. You have to go in on the ground and do it, but you can't. You don't have enough troops to do it. Even you in Israel don't have enough. These guys got 1 million+ man army, and they have sophisticated weapons, not the crap that the Iraqis were using. Not the old tank units that the Iraqis had. These are much more updated stuff. You're going to go in there and it's going to be a meat grinder, dude. That's going to make Ukraine look like nothing. That's my guess. And he won't go in because he can't. Read this article so you too can understand why Democrats are toilet people. PJ Media. There's really something screwy going on in Georgia, in the Georgia 2020 election fraud investigation. Why is all this stuff happening, but nothing seems to ever happen, right? You're seeing all these things. These records were seized. This happened, this, and then. But at the end of this, where are we? There's nobody being arrested. All you see is fake thing after fake thing. Yeah, these guys are looking into something, but nothing ever happens. It's like Hoover. Yeah, Hoover's doing the biggest investigation that anyone's ever seen. He's flying plane loads of information back from Arkansas against the Clinton Foundation. And then what happens? Nothing. Where's the plane loads of data that you had on the Clinton Foundation and how they're doing a paper play scheme? I mean, look at all the money that people gave that thing. It's still there. It's still operating. To this day, it's still there. It's 2026. It's 10 years later since this guy first got in, and we got nothing. And these pundits are still going, yeah, EBS, any day. 10 days of darkness, any day now. EBS, new quantum banking system, any day. But weren't you saying that in 2024, 2023? 2022. Remember when Charlie Ward was saying that the quantum banking system, it's not a matter of days or months, it's hours. Remember that? That was a complete fucking lie. And everything that fucker said since is a lie. But there's people listening to it and enriching these people by buying their products and going online and getting their Magador jackets and all this bullshit. Thinking that Trump's the hero still. How long ago was it now where I was talking about that Trump could be a Trojan horse? That was 2 or 3 years ago. And I think I was right. It's looking like I am. And I wish I wasn't, because if he would have done, if I was the president and I first got in, I'd say, where's those med beds? How many units do you have? I want those in one of those in every state by the end of the year. If not, you're all fired. Here's $1 billion. Make it happen. Period. 2, I want to spend another $1 billion on putting through Tesla towers and at least 4 of those across the United States within 1 year. Here's another $1 billion. Make it happen. And it would have happened. It would have easily happened. You wouldn't even need the $1 billion to put Tesla's thing into effect, I would think. Probably way less. Maybe 200-300 mil. That's it. But we can't have people beaming energy to other parts of the country and the world, right? That would make Con Ed redundant. Iran threatens attacks on tourist destinations worldwide in retaliation for U.S.-Israel airstrikes. This was 6 days ago. The threats also renewed concerns that Iran will use militant or terror attacks beyond the Middle East as a pressure tactic to end the war. Well, they're already doing that. They're hitting all these countries that didn't attack them, where we have military bases. They're saying they destroyed the majority of our military bases overseas. I don't see anything that says that that's true. I also don't see, like I said, Benjamin Fulford and people like this are coming out saying that Israel is completely surrounded. It's been completely destroyed. What are you talking about? I can go on a live cam for Jerusalem and see the Dome of the Rock right now, and it's still there. There's no smoldering buildings everywhere. What are you talking about? Yeah, you hit some areas with some munitions, but those are cluster bombs. Those are small munitions. Those aren't rockets that are blowing up whole buildings. You're not seeing the type of damage in Iran that you're seeing in Israel, right? There's a different type of damage. It's much more severe in Iran. So people like Fulford are missing and disinforming the populace by saying that Haifa and these cities are completely destroyed when I can go on a live cam and see those cities are not destroyed. So he's a liar. Lesbian Secret Service agent tied to Butler failure suspended again, accused of secret marriage to foreign national. The concern is that the wife had overstayed her visa and would have been facing a deportation order. So this woman is I don't understand why this woman is in the Secret Service or how she got in there, but she did. CBS News ends their radio division after 100 years in operation. It lays off 6% of staff. A shift in radio station programming strategies coupled with challenging economic realities has made it impossible to continue the service. What? Why is it so expensive for you to do radio all of a sudden? Now, radio is the cheaper version. Should be cheaper than TV. So obviously there's some changes that are starting to happen at some of the bigger companies, right? U.S. stealth fighter jet hit by Iranian fire as attacks on energy escalate. So they hit one of our stealth fighters, which is like, I thought that plane was supposed to be, you can't even see it, but they can. They can see the stealth. So that got hit by something, whether it was just anti-aircraft, maybe that by lucky, or we don't know. An urgent investigation's underway to determine how an F-35 stealth fighter jet, which cost roughly $100 million to make and is nearly invisible to radar, was struck. Yeah, it's nearly invisible, but it's not totally invisible. Trump calls NATO cowards for not helping to open the Strait of Hormuz. You realize this strait we need to get off of oil, right? Why didn't we get the Tesla towers? We wouldn't be in this position if we had. We'd be running the entire world. Because we could say to them, hey, we'll show you how to build one of these. We'll beam energy to you for free. All you got to do is build the thing, right? And spend the money that it costs to build the system. And it's not that expensive. Iranian caught trying to break into nuclear missile base. Wow, so there's Iranians in this country trying to break into missile bases? That's not good. What kind of security is that? Right? Why are they doing that? An Iranian man was arrested after attempting to enter a nuclear missile base in Scotland. Okay, it wasn't even in the United States. I didn't know there was too many Iranians in Scotland, right? You're starting to see, if you go to parts of Ireland right now, you wouldn't even recognize it. Right? They're trying to darken these countries by sending in non-white, mostly Muslim, military-age men. That's what they're doing. And you're starting to see, people that are starting to respond and attack these migrants. You can see a lot of it on X. There's a lot of videos. You start following certain people like Tommy Robinson and these people, you'll see different accounts where these guys are out there now and they're looking for these migrants when they're doing wrong and they're making them pay the price. I've seen multiple illegal aliens get beat up for following young girls. Not just once, multiple, many times. I was out last night, by the way, and I saw a young lady being harassed by a guy who may or may not have been a migrant, I don't know. He looked Hispanic. But I was about to turn around and confront the guy when he walked away from the girl willingly, and she walked off finally, and he was following her. I was about to do something because it got me so upset. I don't like seeing anybody bother a woman like that. When a woman says, I'm not interested, I don't want to talk to you anymore, that means she's not interested. And she doesn't want to talk to you anymore. It doesn't mean that she's playing hard to get. It doesn't mean that she might be interested. No, she does not want to talk to you anymore. Period. Get the fuck out of her face. Period. Leave. Don't harass people. Don't follow a woman thinking she's going to somehow respond positively to that when you're stalking her. That's called stalking, right? When you're following somebody, you're stalking them. Don't do that. And you shouldn't do it. And the cops should be more out there, especially in areas where there's bars that are operating late night, where there's clubs. There should be people out there to escort these women to cabs, to their cars, because these guys are out there waiting for them in some of these places, and they're raping women. They're taking them when they're drunk off, and they're grabbing them. Not everyone goes out with a guy or a group of guys. Some women go out with other women and they don't have anyone to protect them. White House rebranding mass deportations. They're rebranding it now. It doesn't look like they're doing the mass deportations like they were. They never came into New York majorly with ICE. They never even set foot here. They never set foot in Connecticut. They never set foot in New Jersey. That's where a lot of the illegal aliens are, in those 3 states. Those are all blue states. It's called the tri-state area. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Right? All within easy driving distance of New York City. If you go if you do an hour north or an hour drive window around New York, there's a lot of places that there's stuff going on, right? Because it's within an hour of New York City. U.S. sends 3 warships, thousands more Marines to Middle East. This deployment is about 3 weeks earlier than had been anticipated. So is the Nimitz still there? And did anyone get a confirmation? Has the Nimitz been sunk? I don't think it has been. You would have heard it somewhere. Because there'd be dead bodies all over the freaking place. There'd be drowned soldiers all over in the ocean, right? And how many people are on board the Nimitz? It's thousands, I think. World War II nitrogen production issues in age of modern fertilizers, right? What happened at the end of World War II was we had all this nitrogen that we were using partially to make explosives with, that we didn't have anything to do with it anymore. What are we going to do with all this? It's the same thing with, hey, we found this black stuff, this oil. Well, when we start to process it, we come up with a product called gasoline. What do we do with gasoline? Well, we don't have any use for it right now. How about, instead of pursuing the electric car that we were doing in 1899, 1900 period, 1895 and earlier, you can go back and find the steam engine cars and this stuff in the pre-1880, right, that was coming out, that was new ways to make a car move or a vehicle move. Steam was a big deal, right? The steam engine was how they, for a time, were using for the railroad engines, right? Steam engines. Of course, they were burning a lot of coal and wood to make those engines go faster. So that's what they did. They used a lot of this nitrogen and they made it into something called fertilizers that you can now use to grow your crops. But they weren't really good for you. Right? They stopped using electroculture and all the experimentation that had gone on in the 1800s with electroculture and putting electrical current into the plants that you were growing makes for higher crop yields and faster blooming, faster yield. So the crops would grow faster, they'd grow bigger, they'd grow stronger, and you wouldn't need the pesticides because you're using copper wire and things of that nature as well that would repel, because of the resonant frequencies coming out of the earth, would repel insects away from your crops without having to use poison. Airports are on the verge of having to shut down and stop all flights as TSA chaos triggers mass travel hell. That's probably over now, I'm assuming, since they funded the thing, but why would you not fund the DHS, which is a huge agency? Panic in Hawaii as dam faces imminent failure. So we saw that they flooded out Hawaii again. I think it was the Big Island this time, with some storms that are still going on. I don't know if the storm stopped. You're just seeing crazy weather. We got massively chemtrailed here in New York the other day. I mean massively. And then I'm going out the other night to hang out with a friend, and I look up and it's just massive. There's another huge plane just hugely releasing a massive line of chemtrail right over the city. And I just thought to myself, what's going on here? We're not getting any. What are these people fucking doing? If this guy is supposed to be saving us, Trump, why haven't you stopped the chemtrails? You've had plenty of time to do it. This should have been stopped 2016. 10 years ago this should have ended. And what? You're saying some pundit's going to come out, oh no, he couldn't do it back then. He didn't have the control. He didn't know who was doing it. That's bullshit, dude. I'm so sick of these fucking liars. These people have been lying to you for years, and they're profiting off it, and you don't see that? Stop listening to these people. They're lying to you. Trump's preparing to put troops on the ground in Iran as bombshell plans are revealed. You better put a whole bunch more than 10,000 down. That's not going to be enough, man. You're going to have to put a couple of 100,000 down. Then you're talking Vietnam, right? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Here's the adrenochrome scene that you've probably seen already. We don't need to rewatch it. If you haven't watched the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I suggest you watch it. I suggest you watch it quick. Figure the fuck out what's going on, because when we first saw that movie, and I read the book, by the way, I don't remember the adrenochrome scene being in the book. I'll have to go back and check. It's been many years since I read the book. I didn't remember that scene from the book, though. I remembered it from the movie. So it's possible it may have been taken out of the book. I'm not sure. Some authors, publishers are like that. They might not put that in because it was giving away too much information. I don't know. Of course, Hunter S. Thompson was known to, carry a suitcase full of drugs with him, basically, when he was traveling. So, when you're on a bunch of drugs that are not easily found in most places you're traveling, you need to carry your drug pharmacopoeia with you in a suitcase, sectioned off by content, right? Here's the weed area, here's the amphetamines, here's the downers, here's the uppers, here's the here's the heroin, here's the cocaine. He was a big cocaine user, I know that. I remember watching one time that he printed his daily schedule. I think it involved something around waking up around 1 or 2 in the afternoon to a Bloody Mary, followed by a line or two of cocaine, I think. Something like that. That's the breakfast at champions right there. Benjamin Fulford was reporting 5 days ago that the cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa have been completely destroyed. That's what he said, not me. he said they've been completely destroyed. I can find no evidence that either of those claims is true. And I posted a live cam Jerusalem from the Temple Mount that day, as well as live cam March 21st shows the city still there and not destroyed, as Fulford reported. Here's a skyline webcam of the Jerusalem panorama. So, do you know how big a city Jerusalem is? So there's another rumor that the IDF or Netanyahu's people are tunneling under the Al-Aqsa Mosque to destroy the foundation, and then they're going to destroy the temple, saying it was hit by a missile from Iran. But it's really going to be them, that they'll have done a controlled demo of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and it's going to be completely destroyed. So we'll see if that does happen. We'll keep an eye on Israel. I also had heard rumors that underneath that mosque is the actual copies of the original Torah that they have somewhere, which is going to say some different stuff, right? Because you got the Torah, and then you got a group of people that after a time said, hey, we're going to make this new book, and we're going to follow that instead of the Torah's teachings more. Right? Which wasn't exactly what God had meant. You know, if you look into the Torah, it's a super interesting document. There's codes in the Torah that people believe can tell the future, right? That foretold about 9/11 happening and other events in the future. You can go watch a movie called Pi. Interesting movie where this gentleman figures out like how the stock market algorithm basically works. From watching stocks long enough, he finds a pattern, right? Which is possible. Iranian women just want their pre-1979 lives back. Here, I'm going to show you this picture because it's what it used to be like in Iran in like the mid to late 70s. It's completely different worlds, right? Here's women wearing like skirts that go up halfway up their leg. Women showing leg. No burqa, no headgear, no headgear whatsoever. Women wearing their hair in different styles, long, short. Women wearing pants, women wearing skirts. Right? Completely different. Like this is how most women would in your today's world would dress, any way they want. Not forced to wear a burqa, not forced to wear a headscarf to cover their head at all. This is what they want back. I don't blame them for wanting it back. It should have never left. But that was our fault for doing that. The United States did that. We're the ones that installed the new leader and had a coup. Armageddon attack on Qatari plant could keep energy prices high around the world. So I wrote, how fast can we build the Tesla tower arrays we'd need if we set the Army Corps of Engineers to the task with unlimited resources and funds? I'd say 4 months or less, maybe even 2 if you threw enough cash and manpower at it, right? We could have had 0 point energy fast if we wanted it. We just chose not to so we can retain the antiquated petroleum infrastructure set up for the last 100+ years. It's pure greed motivated, nothing else. That's what I wrote. That's my take on it, and that's correct. They put in a petroleum infrastructure that they do not want to get rid of by any means necessary. Why? Because it's incredibly lucrative. Robert Mueller, former FBI director and Russia's special counsel, dies, right? And Trump went on and made some nasty comments about him that I won't repeat, but I'm not the type of person that likes to speak ill of the dead usually, right? If someone's dead, let them be dead, right? There's no reason to... We already abundantly know your feelings toward Mueller. Was he a deep state tool used to hamstring your presidency? Yeah. Mamdani is letting reckless New York City e-bike riders off the hook, but astonishing data shows fatal cost of bike lane chaos. So these bike lanes are super dangerous. I got to admit, I always look now twice when I cross the street. Once for cars, and then as I approach, if there's a bike lane before I get to the opposite side, I'm looking that way too, because these dudes zip down that thing going 30, 40 miles an hour on these e-bikes now. Nobody rides a bike anymore the normal way. It's all these e-bikes that are zipping around where you don't have to pedal. And of course, they made more of these e-bikes available because they want to give these illegal aliens a job that they could do, right? Which is what? Delivering food using like Seamless or DoorDash accounts, where they're sharing the accounts, which is illegal, right? So if you want to stop helping these people in the big cities, stop using DoorDash. Don't use Seamless. Call the restaurant directly that you want to order your food from. And if they don't deliver it, then go pick it up if you can. I know that to some people that's impossible. It's going to cost gas, and I get it. You can't do it, right? They just rather let these people come and do your shopping for you and bring it to your house. And I get it. Some people need that. They're elderly and they can't do it. They're willing to pay the extra. I get it. And that's fine. But we don't all have to order all our food from off Seamless and with these people all the time either. Some restaurants will deliver the food directly to you without using Seamless drivers, which is better. Because then you're giving their local guy who works in the pizza place, maybe the guy in the back, he's delivering it to you. He's getting the money, not Seamless. Because Seamless adds on all kinds of extra fees. You're not just tipping, it's like a double tip you're giving, right? You have to tip the guy and then tip them again and then do another fee to Seamless. Fraud report. 89 hospice companies were located in a Los Angeles office building. So here's the next scam. It's hospice fraud. Why? Well, because in hospice fraud, what is a drug that hospices use a lot of? They use pain meds, right? They use fentanyl, right? They use OxyContin, right? Yeah. Those are incredibly valuable drugs to buy. At the height of the OxyContin thing, you could, if you had the right OxyContin pill, the extra strength ones, the right ones, they were going for $40 to $60 for one pill at one point. Imagine you have a 30 or a 50 vial of those. That's incredibly lucrative. That's $3,000 for one. That you could sell that that 50 vial for $3,000. Now do the math and you see how big that was, right? That's why all those people were going down to Florida finding those. There was in areas that where the pharmacies were known to easily give you fake scripts for these drugs where people were making huge amounts of money. Now they're doing these hospice things where they're getting monies from the government as well as possible fentanyl rings that are smuggling fentanyl throughout the country using these fake hospices and stuff, possibly, right? China silver imports hit record high, nearly 800 tons, just in January and February alone, which is about 25 million plus ounces of silver China gobbled up. 25 million ounces, that's just in the first 2 months of this year. You don't think they see something coming that you don't see? You're fucking damn right they do. They see that there's going to be a massive shortage of silver coming, and it's already here. Why is the price of silver so low? It's artificially being kept low and being forced down so for two reasons that I could see. One is they want to continue to buy cheap silver as much as possible. Those people who are using a lot of silver to make solar panels and weapons and the electric vehicles. The other part of it is that they want you to sell your physical silver if you're holding it, especially people holding over 500 ounces or more. They want you to get scared. They want you worried. They want you to cash out so that silver can be sucked up by the vacuum cleaner of the world wanting it so much, world demand. And that's once it's sucked up out of the market, it can't come back. They can't create enough new silver or mine enough new silver to satisfy the demand for all that all these people have. Big countries like India, China, United States, other big countries that want and need a lot of silver, like France, Great Britain, and others. There's not enough for everybody. Well, then why is the price so cheap? Well, because it's being artificially manipulated by banks. Until the whole paper market system for these things should be abolished, especially for all metals trade. I think all futures trade should also be illegal, but that's another thing that they're going to have to do with the new banking system that they create. All these things should be illegal. You shouldn't be allowed to bet on whether or not oil or a food source is going to, or food stuff is going to become more valuable or less valuable, because there's people that have weather manipulation technology that they can, yeah, we can make the price of oranges go up if we want, right? We can freeze the shit out of Florida using some weather mod where it goes down to 30 degrees in Miami, and your oranges are all fucked. You're going to lose the crop. Right? Now, all of a sudden, orange juice futures are more, right? If I know that's going to happen and I bet on it, that's what people are alleging they were doing with the oil, right? That's why with the war and with the oil price. Jason Momoa forced to flee his house, along with many others in Hawaii. It looks like they're trying to destroy Hawaii just like they destroyed Oahu. They don't want people living in these places. It's like the 2030 UN map that we showed you, where they don't want the coasts, they don't want anyone living on the coastlines of California and other states. They want it all cleared. YouTuber who exposed Somali fraudsters in bombshell investigation reveals terrifying threats from left-wing activists. Yeah, he's going to need people to you know what he's going to need is you need local people to come out and help you. Numbers are your friend here, right? If he can go into an area and then before he comes notify a few, maybe some followers, hey, listen, followers, I need some big strong dudes that know how to handle themselves a little bit to run some security. I can pay you something, but I need you more to do it as a donation. Can you help me out, right? I'm sure there's going to be some ex-vets that might be like, hey, I can do that, no problem. I know how to handle myself. But when you're in Cali and there's all kinds of these people, you don't know where you're going, the neighborhoods where you are. These guys went into, O'Keefe and his people went into the Tenderloin and started to confront some of these people that were giving out cigarettes and money for his signatures, and they got beat up and chased out of there. Some of these guys had to run 10 blocks, they said, to get out. Well, that's why you come with a car, dude. What, you don't have anybody on your team that knows how to handle themselves, that knows how to fight at all? You just let a bunch of pussies come out with their cell phone cameras to this place, and you think you're going to walk in there and mess around with these guys? You don't have any backup plan? If the shit goes south? You should have. Donald Trump fumes about Robert Mueller. I'm glad he's dead, as he launches scathing attack. All right. This is a guy that doesn't forget any slights, right? He's like an elephant. He doesn't forget. And he'll revel in your death. Hamas was given 90 days to hand over their rockets, missiles, and latest Gaza disarmament. Why aren't they disarmed yet? Hasn't the 90 days been gone already? I guess not. The mystery of Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khomeini, baffles intelligence beyond weird. They're saying he's gay. He's a closeted gay male. And some of these Muslim men are gay. No question. Look at what they were doing in Afghanistan to the little boys. They were making them into little girl dancers and then raping them, right? You remember that? Why is that allowed to happen? Well, why do you think some of these guys show up into the United States and these countries and they're following women home? They don't know how to speak to a woman. They don't even know what they're doing. They've probably never had sex in their whole life. Some of these men. They're completely socially inept. They have no social skills hardly at all. So that all that they can do is follow a woman home and try to make, in the middle, in a dark, like at night when they're scaring them and trying to make conversation with them. But meanwhile, all you're doing is scaring these women half to death, and you look like a rapist. Over 100 Israeli civilians wounded by new Iranian missile strikes, including one near nuclear facilities. So there's some of these weapons are coming through the Iron Dome. Mexican pastor wanted for child sex abuse collared by border agents after escaping to California. Here's a Mexican priest abusing children. Are you that surprised? I'm not. Whenever I hear of a priest abusing a child, I'm not surprised, because the research I've done finds that these things have been going back to the 60s, to the 1950s, to the 40s, and nobody did anything about it. And even earlier, much earlier. Much, much earlier. In fact, at one point, the Vatican had so many, when they do their own internal due diligence about pedophile priests, they realized that as many as maybe a third of all the Vatican priests are pedophiles. A third of all the priests are pedophiles. Well, what do you do with that many pedophiles? They were going to originally buy an island and put them all on that island, and they never did that, the Vatican Church. That's how many pedophiles they have. And this is a religion? This is a religion that you want around in your planet? I don't think so. But it's the Jews that did everything, right? It's not these guys. These guys have no involvement in anything. The blame has to go to these guys also, no? Yeah, sure. The Rothschilds gave the Vatican a loan, but that was in the 1800s. What about the 700 years previous? What were you doing then? Right? Senate Democrats blocked legislation that would ban men from women's sports. The Senate voted 49-41, falling short of the 60 votes needed to advance the amendment. So men are not banned from women's sports. They still want to be allowed in women's sports because of the Democrats. So just so you know, China imported 25 million plus ounces of silver in just 56 days. That's less than 2 months. That's a lot of silver. And where did they get that silver? From the COMEX vaults, most of it, because people were buying the silver contract in the United States, taking delivery, if they could, of the silver, if the bars were even there, which most of it isn't. And if they did get the bars, they were then flying the bars over to Asia and selling them at a profit. Because the price of silver in Asia was at one point $30 to $40 higher than it was in the United States, which should not be, right? It should be the same. Give or take $1 or $2 maybe for the ask and the bid and ask price, but not $20, $30 difference, no. Iranian regime defies Trump ultimatum on Strait of Hormuz. They're not opening up the strait, only to friendly people of their country, not the United States. New York City's First Lady Rama Duwaji created artwork for DSA's anti-Israel campaign. So it seems like this woman definitely doesn't like Jews. She's worked for anti-Israel campaigns. She's claiming that that she loves everybody the same? That all religions are the same? I don't think so. And this is the First Lady of our city that's doing this. New York poll rips clearly broken immigration system after Venezuelan migrant busted for killing local teen. I mean, it's been broken long before this. You've been leaving the border's been wide open since the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. Nobody's been watching the borders. People have just been walking over our border for years, decades. It's a joke. Iran threatens zero restraint if U.S. makes good on Trump's ultimatum to obliterate power plants. So Trump backed off doing that. He didn't want to escalate things even more. Trump delays strikes on Iran power plants for 5 days, citing very good and productive conversations. But there is no conversations, according to the Iranians. So what the hell is really going on here? We have no idea. We don't even know if there is a war going on there. And we see some explosions, but this could be a wag the dog thing. You could make a whole war look like anything you want with AI now, with the fake videos they can do. Mamdani's plan to drain $1 billion in reserves harms the New York City budget, Comptroller Levine warns. Yeah, you can't just take the city's reserves and use it because you're short money. You're still short, right? You're still going to be $1 billion in the hole by doing that. You can't just take the money and say, oh yeah, we're okay now. We have $1 billion less debt. We took $1 billion off our reserves. No, you still have that debt. You still have the $1 billion you lost. And it's billions you're in the hole for. I said, Mamdani doesn't know how to balance a budget. He probably can't even balance his checking account. This guy's going to balance the budget of one of the largest cities with the largest budget in the world when he has no experience doing anything like that? I don't think so. He doesn't know how to balance a large budget. He doesn't know how to deal with large amounts of cash, how to give the money out, what it's used for. Israel orders the IDF to immediately destroy all Litani river bridges to curb Hezbollah pro-terrorists. Sorry. Starting to bust up some of these bridges so that people can't move around the same. Newark Airport was in chaos after sudden tower evacuation grounds and delays thousands of flights. So we had a massive accident in LaGuardia where a fire truck was approved to cross a runway where a plane was landing. I've never seen that happen before. And the plane, I mean, for just hitting the amount of damage this plane took for just hitting the fire truck shows you how poorly constructed these planes are, right? It's just you're flying around in an aluminum tube. Aluminum is not the strongest metal for sure, no. You could see that when the planes hit the trade centers, that gaping hole in the first tower was not, I don't think, from a plane at all. I think it was from a missile or something that hit those. It wasn't. And I saw a video of that, of an American Airlines that looked like missile, right? Or was it a controlled demo inside the building? We don't know at this point. We know there was demolition put in the building by those Israeli artist group who had access to the building. We know the building's security system was off for a whole weekend while it was rebooted and work was done to it. That was the time when a lot of charges were laid and demolition was laid in the buildings, I believe. But there's also something else was used on them, because where's the rest of the rubble, right? If a 110-story building that's made out of metal falls down, there's going to be 30, 40 stories of rubble somewhere, right, that would pile up. But that's not what happened. There was only 2 or 3 stories of rubble, which means that dustification weapon was used on it, as well as the fake demolition charges to help it to free fall at free fall speed, right? Opinion: Mamdani delivers a Department of Public Safety that's barely even symbolic. I noticed that this guy basically doesn't like to hire white people either a lot. If you look at what he's doing, he's basically taking the whole mayor's office and all that, and he's putting in people who are not qualified. And I'm not saying they're not qualified because of their race, but I'm just saying that you want to put the best person in, right, for every position. It doesn't matter what their race is. It should be by who's the best at their job. And what I'm saying to you is that some of the people that he's putting in are not even close to the best person for the job. They're far from it, in fact. In fact, he's using race as his driver of his hiring practice instead of who's the best at the job. And that's the problem. Because to hire just by race and exclude one race is illegal. You can't do that. That's not how you're supposed to hire people. You're supposed to hire the best of the best, regardless of race. Kim Goldwyn came out with her White House Emergency Spring Equinox show. It seems that these people were, if they were given what they wanted, would then have come out and said, yeah, Trump is already dead. He passed away. It's going to be Vance. But since she didn't capitulate to them, Goldwyn, and she will not fund anything that they have, that they've brought forth. These people are paralyzed. They can't go into the new banking system because she won't fund it. And their old system is falling apart from underneath them, and they can't prop it up much longer. That's sort of what I think is going on here. Here's an illegal alien following young girls around in Liverpool, is told to stop. This is from far-right Scousers X.com account. You can check them out on X.com. Illegal alien caught following and harassing a young girl. Every effing day these animals need to go. That's what he wrote. So these guys are going out and they're hanging around areas where they know kids are to watch and make sure that they're safe. And what they're seeing is these illegal aliens, most of whom are either black or brown, are following young girls home, sometimes grabbing them, sometimes putting arms around them and walking them somewhere to be raped. We've seen multiple video of people saving young kids from possible rape or worse from one of these migrants who are just walking up to them and putting an arm around them and grabbing them and saying, hey, we're going. So if be careful. Make sure you know where your kids are. Maybe if you can, pick up your kids from school, right? Or have your kids go in groups. That's what we used to do when we were young kids. Me and my two friends would always go to school together because they were fucking creeps all over the place. It was safer if you stayed in groups also from other kids that were bullying us at the time, right? You didn't want to get caught out there by a group of other kids when you were by yourself. You could get hurt. If I got 2 or 3 other people with me and we all fight, and everyone knows that we fight, most people would leave us alone because we're known to fight and we're not known to run. And after a while, if you keep fighting us, you're going to get hurt at some point. Yeah, we're going to get hurt too, but you're going to get hurt. We'll make sure of it. And once you do get hurt bad, you're not going to want to fuck around anymore. Not with those kids. You go find some other weaker kids to fuck with, right? That's what these migrants do. They pick on the weakest among us, the elderly, the children, and they try to hurt them and steal from them. A lot of these people. Not all of them, no. But enough of them that it's a problem. Office of Public Affairs, Department of Justice came out with a press release March 20th, 2026. 5 more plead guilty in Minnesota feeding our future fraud scheme. So Minnesota was a huge thing, but there's bigger stuff going on in like New York and Cali, right? Where I wonder how much fake hospices there are in New York. Probably a bunch. I could probably try to look into that. Some of this stuff you start looking into can get you killed, right? That's what you realize. Savannah Hernandez says, Sav says on X.com, wrote, "Crazy, I caught this guy illegally bribing the homeless on Skid Row to sign petitions that could verifiably change California law. This huge crime ring has also been targeting the homeless for years and registering them to vote using fraudulent info." So this guy was out there, and James O'Keefe caught the same guy like a day or 2 later doing it, right? They got a tent set up. They're in the middle of the freaking Tenderloin. They're handing out cigarettes and money to people to get their signatures on stuff. And of course people will vote to sign something for a couple of cigarettes. Kidding me? You're fiending for a cigarette, man, and some guy says, "I'll give you a couple bucks and a cigarette or 2 if you sign this." Of course you'll sign it. You'll sign it right away. You don't give a fuck what you're signing. Here's James O'Keefe. "My team, myself, and I were just violently assaulted on Skid Row. My camera crew were punched in the neck and face. We were pepper sprayed, but thankfully just escaped. Some members of our team had to run 10 blocks to get out. We were in the heart of Skid Row confronting the petitioners, who, as Sav says, and my team caught on tape illegally offering drugs for ballot signatures. Please share this video." So there was James' video. You can watch Savannah Hernandez's video documenting that these guys are doing that. And of course, they didn't come at her with violence. That was interesting. She's pretty brave. Trump tells ICE not to wear masks in the airport. And then you got these people who are following ICE around. So hopefully they can get ICE out of the airport and just put it back to the way it was, which is not a really well done system, right? It takes a long time to... You shouldn't have to show up 3 hours ahead of time just to take a flight somewhere, right? It doesn't take 3 hours for you to, scan my luggage and check me for weapons and get me on my fucking plane, right? Why is there so many incidents happening on planes that people that are now all of a sudden acting crazier? And have you noticed that there's a large increase in the amount of... Is it just people drinking too much? And then, people don't realize if you're a little drunk when you go... Before you get on the plane, you're going to be more drunk at 30,000 feet. Trust me, right? People don't realize that. They get a little drunky drunk, right? And then they get on the flight and then they say, "Oh, well, give me a little Smirnoff." Why not? Give me a couple Smirnoff bottles. And next thing you know, you're piss-ass drunk and you're getting nasty, right? All of a sudden, the little kid's pushing your chair from behind once and you fucking snap, right? You go crazy. Somebody's baby's crying for an hour and you lose your shit. I don't know what's going on planes, but there's definitely more incidents of people just totally losing their shit. I've never seen so many people lose their shit before on planes as the past, 5 or 6, 7 years. Why is that? Top Iranian official claims no ongoing negotiations with the U.S. after Trump praised very good and productive talks. So I wrote, what the fuck is going on? One guy's saying, hey, we're doing a great job. It's almost over. We're winning the war. We're negotiating a peace thing right now. It's over. We destroyed your whole navy. And the other side saying, this isn't over. We're not talking to you at all. We're at war with you right now. We have no ongoing talks with you at all, period. Unmasked ICE agents hounded after being deployed to airports in an attempt to clear TSA crisis. Russia's largest oil port crippled in huge Ukrainian drone attack. So there's another oil port crippled, trying to drive the price of oil up. The owner of OnlyFans is dead at 43 after battle with cancer. So there's your karma, right? You made this website that encourages young women to, prostitute themselves basically on this site for money, right? To do, videos and sexualized pictures of themselves. And 99.9% of the women who go on this make almost nothing, by the way, per month. Basically zero. Maybe $100, something, but it's not the millions that the top 1% get on it. It's just like one level away from being a prostitute, really. You're selling stuff of yourself, pictures and things of yourself doing sexual acts on video to people for money. Who else does something like that? Well, like a porn actress. That's what a porn actress does, right? I wrote, shutter this disgusting website forever. It should be shuttered. Trump proposes joint control of the Strait of Hormuz as he stunningly reveals he has no idea who's in charge of Iran. You think they're going to let you run the Strait of Hormuz? I highly doubt it. You're going to have to destroy the whole leadership there to do that. Trump lashes out at reporters' crazy question on putting U.S. troops in Iran as he issues chilling warning. We'll keep bombing. Yeah. How much can you bomb till there's nothing, till you got to go in and deal with the physical army? Right? Most of the major victories have been won by massive amounts of death. Is the only way you can win these major wars, right? You got to kill more of the enemy than they kill of you. Americans reveal ideal age cutoff for Senate lawmakers as Democrats privately fume 87-year-old Maxine Waters is running again, which means that how old can this woman, are these people really even real? Or are they just jumping bodies in there, That's what I think these people have been doing. They've been jumping bodies. And if you look historically, some of these people look like other people in the past, right? You can look up people that look just like them. There's a guy that looks just like Putin. He was a soldier like 85 years ago or whatever, right? Looks just like Putin. So these people just like living multiple lives through, jumping into different bodies, maybe. Some of them are, yeah. ICE arrest of illegal alien fugitive at San Francisco airport sparks fear-mongering. Here's what really happened. I thought they were Guatemalans. I think they were a Guatemalan family and they were already looking for them. It had nothing to do with ICE being at the airport. They just happened to be, that's where they found them. Notorious Philadelphia abortionist Kerman Gosnell, who killed babies born alive, dead at 85. It's amazing how these murderers who kill babies, they live so long, and how bad people live so long sometimes. New York school pushes artwork by Zohran Mamdani's wife while blocking Holocaust survivor from speaking to students. Why would you block a Holocaust survivor from speaking? Right? Somebody with the tattoo on their arm that proves they were there, right? Where you can't just say, oh, no, that was fake. Really? Well, why do I have this tattoo on my arm? Why are there stacks of corpses in this all over the place that we have video of? Okay, well, it was fake. Okay. You say so. I've met people with the tattoo on their arm. It's a pretty visceral experience when you do that, by the way. Can you imagine what kind of horrors and nightmares these people went through and somehow found a way back to their humanity from? Massive explosion at crude oil refinery rocks Texas City as residents told to shelter in place. So here's another oil incident where the refinery blew up in Texas. I think it's the same place where Trump wants to make a $300 million facility there for oil, not for Tesla Tower technology. You notice this guy's never once mentioned anything about Tesla's tech and didn't even talk about it. Barely talked about Area 51, 52. Claimed he's going to release something about UFOs and he never did. Claimed there's med beds and never released them. Claimed there's a new banking system and never released it. We know there's 0 Point Energy. He never invested in it. California sheriff seizes ballots from 2025 special election. What about when the recall election of Newsom, when we saw the votes being changed online on the TV screen again and nobody did anything about it? Why is CNN showing the screen the numbers going down for Newsom's recall when it was going up? Why was that never dealt with? How about in 2016, the 2020 election, when the same thing happened with the votes going down for Trump and up for Biden and nobody did anything about it? I don't know. Because Biden had to get in, right? Well, they had to make it appear that he did. Sanctioned Russian tankers nearing Cuba test U.S. oil ban enforcement. What if Trump's in on it with them all along, right? But he can't. They don't want him to blow the third term, right? They want him to come in later, so they say, okay, we'll have it that we'll fake it that Biden wins, but you'll really be in charge. You'll do all this shit that we tell you to fuck the country up, and then it'll be perfect. We'll have it all set up for you to win 2024. Then we got you and Vance for another 8, right? We got that control grid. Sanctioned Russian tankers are nearing Cuba. Are they going to stop it or not? Are they going to let that Russia refuel Cuba or not? We'll see. Pete, I think you were the first one to say let's do it. Moment Trump suggests unpopular Iran war was his Secretary of War's idea. So he's trying to make it that it's Hegseth's idea when, you were talking about doing this too. You had to have been. At least 66 people killed after Colombian military plane crashes in western Amazon. 66. Interesting number. Could be something, could be nothing kind of thing. We don't know, right? It could be some military people were just assassinated in Colombia, or we don't know. Iran launches missile strikes on Tel Aviv day after Trump declared good and constructive peace talks. EU blocks U.S. vote to define gender as biological men and women at UN Women's Forum. Of course they're blocking it. They don't want there to just be two genders like there's always been. No, they want a third. They want 50 genders. Kylie Jenner lists her longtime Hidden Hills mansion for $20.3 million. Just 3 months after putting her $48 million fortress on the market. So this woman just put $60+ million worth of real estate back on the market. Is this a money laundering scheme through the children with the mother owning her own church? Right? We saw that Kris Kardashian has her own church that apparently she's moving money through, allegedly, right? I wrote selling over 60 million. No, it's almost $70 million worth of property. How do these people get so rich so fast? Right? Or what, she has some Kylie company that's now worth $1 billion like that quick. How does that always happen? Same thing happened with, other stars. They got $1 billion matte cosmetics company now, all of a sudden, out of the blue. It's worth $1 billion. Kim Kardashian's got Skims and another thing and this thing, right? And these are people this is a woman that used to be Paris Hilton's assistant. That's who Kim Kardashian was, right? You remember? She started off as Paris Hilton's assistant. Now she's one of the richest, most powerful women in the whole country. How'd that happen? Off a sex tape? Off of no presentable skill sets whatsoever? You just happen to become this tremendously successful businesswoman? Stock and oil futures surged just minutes before Trump's post about Iran as trading expert points figure at insider knowledge. Oh shit, yeah. There's a bunch of different insider trading things that have been going on. Plus, what about those crypto coins? Same thing. Those are all worthless. Supreme Court voices skepticism about states accepting mail-in ballots after Election Day. They shouldn't be able to accept anything after Election Day. That's why it's called Election Day. It's decided in one day. It's the Election Day. That's the day that the new elections are made and decided and won or lost and counted. It's all counted in one day. That's why it's called Election Day, not Election Week. not election month. Pritzker signals he won't turn illegal alien accused of murdering a college student over to ICE. Why not? You want to keep this guy here? You want hoping he gets out on bail so we could murder somebody else? You animal? What's wrong with this guy? You're protecting an alleged murderer, Pritzker. That's what you're doing. Bill Cosby's ordered to pay nearly $60 million after the jury finds he drugged, sexually assaulted women in 1972. Motzinger said that when she served as a waitress in the 70s, Cosby had given her wine and a pill that left her unable to move. So this guy's preying on women like waitresses. Here's a guy that in the early 70s, by the way, could have probably slept with almost any woman he wanted, pretty much. I mean, within limits. But, you know, if he liked white women, he could have slept with white women back then. Whatever the woman, he was a huge star. So the fact that he has to go to this length to incapacitate these women and then rape them shows that he has something very, very deeply wrong inside of himself, right? Here's somebody that doesn't love and respect women. He wants to destroy women and hurt them, right? And then has his assistant pay him $500 or $1,000 the next day to keep quiet when they wake up disheveled and don't know what happened to them. I mean, you'll know if someone had sex with you, obviously, right? If you've been drugged and you wake up and you're going to know somebody had sex with you, right? If you're a woman or a man raped. You'll know, trust me. You'll fucking know. And imagine that feeling, waking up realizing that this has happened to you, and what is your recourse? Almost none, right? Because of the authorities going to believe you over Cosby? Probably not, right? And back then, women were often not believed when they came out with rape allegations. I don't even know if they did rape kits in the 70s. Probably not. CDC issues global travel notices incurable brain bleeding virus reaches the Americas. Of course, that's spread by what? Mosquitoes, right? Dengue fever, stuff like that. Saudis push Trump to resume Iran strikes and grab historic opportunity to remake the Middle East. So the Saudis are saying, hey, man, keep bombing these fools. Knock them all out. But how can you get all these guys out if you don't send some troops in there to get the rest of the mullahs and find them? You got to get them all out and kill them. Or put them in jail. You can't allow some of them to still be out there or escape to other places. The real thing is there a Stargate there? I'm assuming there is. I think the Sumerians had Stargates or had figured out how to do it, or they had obviously aliens that were helping them. If you go and look into the Sumerians, how long that culture lasted, it was a huge amount of time. And if you believe that some of these kings came down like the Anunnaki, who were ruling for thousands of years in some of these scriptures, or some of these Sumerian texts are written on stone blocks have been pointing out, right? Excuse me. The world goes dark. Sri Lanka orders lights off. Philippines declares state of a national emergency. And Slovenia brings in fuel rationing as effects of Iran war ripple around the globe. People are having problems with their fuel already. Starting to lose my voice. I gotta try to finish up. $580 million in oil trades made minutes before Trump's key Iran announcement draw scrutiny. Yeah, who's doing that? Right? There were people that were profiting off 9/11 too, right? People were shorting certain airline stocks days before one of the worst alleged airline catastrophes happened, where planes allegedly hit the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, which we now know was not the case, right? Especially with the Pentagon. We know the Pentagon was hit by a missile, not a plane, obviously, right? Even pilots who had looked at the flight path that the alleged plane took to hit the Pentagon, even expert pilots said, I don't think I could fly that way with that plane and do that. It's almost impossible. You'd have to be a highly expert pilot to be able to maneuver a DC-10 type plane or bigger, and these are bigger than DC-10s. They're a 747 type plane, to do the maneuvers that it would take to that pilot allegedly took to hit the Pentagon is almost impossible. A lot of pilots had said you'd have to be a highly trained pilot. So this guy who never flew that type of plane before, you're telling me he somehow gets into the cockpit, overwhelms both the pilots, and is still okay enough to do the most complex flight maneuvers seen in the last 100 years in a plane like that? I don't think so. Doesn't make sense. Mamdani's mass engagement hires will net cushy salaries totaling nearly $2 million to spread the socialist message. So this guy's hiring mass engagement hires. I don't even know what that is. What are you trying to make it look like you're not doing such a bad job when you really are destroying the city? I don't know. Why are you hiring these people that it costs $2 million to hire? New York City and New York politics live update. Socialist Mamdani is charging thousands of dollars for pics at a DSA event. Isn't that illegal? To charge money for pics of you? I mean, these guys do these $100,000 a plate dinners for these politicians. Doesn't that come with a photo sometimes? Yeah. If you pay enough. Well, that's selling your influence, right? That's selling pictures of yourself for money, for political donations. That should be illegal. Trump claims Iran agreed to give up nukes as his war chief Pete Hegseth fumes. He didn't want it to be settled yet. Hegseth's mad that it's almost over. He wants to kill more people. What also deals with fentanyl is hospices, I wrote, right? Just a couple of days ago, just to reiterate that fact. Is that why the hospices are all over the place all of a sudden? There's not that many people dying at one time that you need 80 hospices in one building, right? No. Biden-era FBI secret records of Kash Patel's calls and texts more sweeping than ever known. So they were really watching him closely. Why is the question. What was he doing? Trump says Iran has agreed to no nuclear weapons and major concession, but that's not what Iran is saying. What's really in the 37 missing pages of the Epstein files that lawmakers are seeking? There's allegedly 3 million more documents that haven't even been released yet. So it's not 3 million, it's 6 million. White House says tentative deal to reopen DHS seems to be acceptable as momentum builds to end the shutdown. It should have never happened. These people, the Democrats, keep messing around trying to shut down different and not fund parts of the government, and it's hurting their credibility, and it's hurting their party. Transparency in war spending lacks as Pentagon asked for $200 billion. That's a lot of money, man, just for the Pentagon, right? And we know the Pentagon lost $1.2 trillion under Rumsfeld in the past. I've also heard that's $2.1 trillion. Pakistan proposes hosting U.S.-Iran negotiations in Islamabad, so maybe that'll happen. We haven't seen that happen yet. Bright green fireball lights the sky over the Pacific Northwest. That's the other thing. We've seen a bunch of meteor shower things happening like in the last week or two, but also in the last years. Lots of meteors coming down. Is that just normal, or is it aliens coming in? Like, remember on the day the Earth stood still? That's how the aliens come in. It looks like they're coming in through like a flash of light, right? And then they're in the ground and they come up. I've seen multiple reports of asteroids spotted entering the atmosphere in the past 5 days. Pope Leo hosts exorcist summit at the Vatican over fears of worldwide surge in Satanism. There's been Satanism in this world. Part of your people are involved in it, unfortunately. The Vatican is involved in Satanism. Why do you think that one reading room looks like the snake's eyes, right? Look at that sculpture that's behind in the main room where the Pope sits. It's obviously a satanic sculpture. It doesn't look like anything close to God, does it? No. New York City was massively chemtrailed the last 2 days, actually, the 25th and the 26th. More so on the 25th. We had 70 degrees yesterday, and now it's dipped back to 50. Senator Bill Cassidy deepens probe into Mamdani's New York City Health Department group that accused Israel of genocide. So why are you taking the New York City Health Department and turning it into some kind of a political mechanism that it's not used for? Right? Take care of the city of New York City's health, people's health in New York. That's what your job is, to make New York City a healthier place. Is that being done? No. You're allowing food trucks all over the city that are belching out pollution all over the place, right? Polluting our children, letting these food carts be right next to schools when they're supposed to be more than a half a block away. Excuse me. What does this group have to do with running New York City? It appears nothing. Iran claims to have attacked U.S. aircraft carrier, fires missiles at bases across the Gulf, and tells America it is negotiating with yourself. Was the Nimitz sunk? I don't believe so. Was there a fire on the Nimitz? Yeah. WWE legend makes shocking claim about Donald Trump assassination attempt. So that's the same thing I said. He thought it was fake. He said, "Where's the scar on his ear? If a bullet hit your ear, it would have taken a chunk out of your ear, right?" I would think. There's no scar. Most people wouldn't stand back up and go fight after there's a shooter still out there. Thousands of crows swarm Tel Aviv's skyline, sparking harbinger of doom warning amid Iran conflicts. All these ravens came out of nowhere, man. Ravens can sometimes be a harbinger of doom, right? When you see this many. I've seen some smaller amounts of crows, like in the city, like 5 or 6 flying, but not like this many. I've seen some larger, twice I've seen large groups of crows in New York, but not like this. Here's the crows. That's a lot. That does not look good, dude. But you can see, is Tel Aviv burning? No. Is Tel Aviv on fire everywhere? No. There's massive amount of buildings gone in Tel Aviv? No. It's right there, dude. So, Benjamin Fulford, you're a liar. I told you right to your face. This man is a disinformation agent and a liar. Period. End of sentence. I say it openly with no remorse, because it's true. You were saying that Tel Aviv was completely destroyed. Iran completely rejects Trump's 15-point ceasefire plan and makes wild demands. New York City and New York politics. Hochul's ominous poll results give GOP challenger a potential path to victory. Only if the election's not rigged like it was in the past for Hochul, I'm assuming, because these elections are all rigged. If only 2 million people vote in an election and there's 8 million people in the city, something's wrong. Either 6 million people didn't vote, or you threw a bunch of ballots out, is my guess. Or 6 million people just said, fuck it. I don't give a shit about my city anymore. It's just going to be a rigged event anyway, so what's the point of voting in it anymore, right? 12,000-year-old pyramid ruins uncovered off Louisiana coast could be evidence of a lost city. That could be Atlantis or something, right? Who knows? They're thinking the Sphinx is like 8,000 or 9,000 years old. Well, then, whoa. Who was around before that, right? Who was around before the Sumerians who was huge? We don't know. That's too far back to really look. We start hearing about names like Atlantis, Lemuria, the Lemurians, the Atlanteans, the other people like that, right? Societies and worlds that, and societies that are just whispers in the history, in some small corners of history, right? That don't even, most people don't think Atlantis ever existed, but I believe it did. SCOTUS appears poised to allow Trump to block asylum claims at border crossings. The issue is whether non-citizens merely have to show up to the border and request to apply for asylum, or if they have to cross the border fully to apply. Meta is ordered to pay a $375 million for not protecting minors from predators online. Witnesses included ex-executives from Meta, teachers, as well as online safety experts. Trump an extraordinary break with Netanyahu as he slaps down bloody regime change plot with brutal warning. Yeah, he told Netanyahu not to hit the oil fields, and he did. Trump an extraordinary break with Netanyahu as he slaps down bloody regime change plot. Did I double that up? Yeah, I did. Sorry, guys. Let's get rid of that. Mamdani administration only serves up $200 million in savings, far short of the $1.7 billion target amid massive budget shortfall. Yeah, you're not saving nearly enough. You're $10 billion or something like that in the hole. RFK Jr. highlights rampant LA hospice fraud run by Russian mobsters. Here's where it started to get more dangerous, because these people will fucking kill you. If you fuck with these people's money, they will kill you, and they'll kill your whole fucking family too, these people. They don't fuck around. I mean, if you want to talk about levels of violence, I think that some of these Russian groups are more violent than the Italian mafia was here, if you can believe that. And maybe even rival some of the stuff that the Jewish mafia did, because if you're talking about Murder Incorporated, which was mostly Jewish killers, a Jewish group of mostly Jewish killers, some as Italian killers, they would do stuff to certain people. They'd kill you in a certain way where it would leave a message. Some of the ways they kill you were not exactly fast. I mean, they were slow. So you die slow, you died painfully, and let's just leave it like that. There were certain ways of tying somebody up where you're literally hog-tied to, where there's a noose around your neck and it's connected to your feet, right? And as you struggle to try to get loose and to get a more comfortable position, you're slowly strangling yourself to death, right? Things like this used to be done. So the other thing is that these hospices are involved with fentanyl, right? Some hospices have access to fentanyl. Not all, but some. Big tech invincibility is over. Historical social media addiction ruling against Meta, Google could open legal floodgates. Yeah, because you didn't protect minors now, right? And you have to protect minors if you're going to let them go on there. And if you're not doing a good job of that, you can be sued now. Like Meta, which means that X.com could be sued, Instagram could be sued, Snapchat could be sued, TikTok could be sued, everybody could be sued. And there's a lot of, unfortunately, pedophiles that go on these sites and try to have access to kids through the games that are on some of these sites. U.S. service member in hijab indicates she would refuse commands targeting Muslims. The video has since spread across social media, with critics pointing out that refusing a lawful order would violate military rules. I wrote, court-martial this person immediately. Just for saying that, you should be court-martialed. And probably removed from the military. I think anybody who's Muslim in the military's jacket should be looked at very closely. And we might have to not have Muslims in our military anymore, because we can't fully vet some of these people and trust them. Sorry to say that, but that's the truth of the matter. Are most of the Muslim people in the army probably good people that love the country of the United States? Yeah, but there's a small amount that don't, and that's the problem. They could grow to be larger groups. We can't afford to have that problem. The Trump administration again seeks to prosecute New York AG Letitia James. Well, then do it already. What are you waiting for? Epstein's accountant and lawyer revealed that DOJ never questioned them about the disgraced financier's crimes. They never talked to Epstein's accountant, and they never talked to his lawyer. Aren't those two people those would be some of the top 5 people I'd want to talk to, especially his former lawyer and his former accountant, because where's all the money going? Were you using people from the banks to pay out some of these women that you heard on the sneak tip? Why are you having bank executives over to your house for like dinners as if they're your best friend? And why did some of these banks continue to do business with Epstein even after he was indicted on crimes against a child? Why do some of these stars continue to be his friend? New York City schools dropped more than $350,000 on creepy new digital hall pass scheme that tracks your kids' toilet trips. Oh, great. So now if there is a pedophile teacher, he knows when your kid's in the toilet and when you can get access to him when he's probably alone, right? I don't think that's a great idea. Why are you tracking my child's movement all through the school anyway? So that's what I got for you, friends. I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. It's obvious to me that this administration is not going forward and doing the things it should be doing. We should be having free energy. We should have medical beds by now. We should have Monsanto being closed down. We should have GMO foods being made forbidden. We should have forced people to stop using our wheat and hydrogenating our wheat and destroying our bread and destroying our food sources. And all these companies should be stopped from doing what they're doing, from poisoning us, from using chemicals that should be illegal. But they're not, right? It hasn't happened under the first Trump, and it hasn't happened now. Has Monsanto been touched? Has DARPA been touched? Has any of these other companies that we know are doing bad things to us? Has the chemtrailing stopped? No. None of that has. We just got chemtrailed here the other day in a massive fashion. And it wasn't small planes doing it. It was 740. It was 757, 767 plane doing it. I could see it. Why has there been no stoppage in the chemtrails? All of these facts that I say to you lead me down the road to concluding that this Trump is compromised and is not who he says he was, or he was in on it with them all along. I'm not sure. My assumption is he's been in on it with them all along. So friends, that's what I have for you. Until we see some movement in this Trump, either an admission coming out that A, this is not the real Trump and that Trump has passed away or something. I'm assuming that Trump has already been passed away, the original one that we saw, and that they've been using these doubles for a long time now to, and obviously not do the right thing, right? And make it appear that they might be doing the right thing, but then all this other shit happens that you never get, right? You never get the med beds. You never get DARPA dealt with. You never get Monsanto dealt with. You never get UFOs and all that coming out in a way that everyone understands and believes that it's true, right? You're never allowed into Area 51, 52. You're never given the quantum banking system. Nasara Jasara, you're never given the monies that you're owed. You're continuing in a lack mentality and a lack society. So all these things are facts. This can't be repudiated. There's been no new banking system. There's no Nasara Jasara. There's been no EBS. These are all facts. There's nobody in Gitmo that we could see at being arrested or tried. There's no military tribunals. So all those facts, all those things that people have said is happening, anyone telling you that those things are happening, any of the things I just said, they're lying to you. They are liars. They cannot show you one proof of evidence that any of those things are happening. They cannot prove that there's med beds being used right now. They cannot prove that someone's in Gitmo. They cannot prove that there's aliens. Because there's a group of people around the president and above that are not allowing the information to come out still to this day. So friends, that's all I got for you right now. Until some of these things start to change, there's not going to be any movement, because these people are not going to allow there to be any movement because they don't want there to be. They're trying to hang on to an old system that's dying out, that the energy level is changing on this planet and won't allow that world to exist anymore. So anybody connected to that world is going to be in for a rude awakening. They're not going to be able to live in the new energy anymore, unless they're of service to others, not to self, right? So friends, I'm incredibly tired. I'm incredibly tired from doing this. My spirit is hurt by the fact that we haven't seen more of these things happen for the benefit of humanity. It really does hurt my spirit. I've had to watch my family members pass away and die, as probably you have, waiting for medical beds that never seem to come. I've had to struggle and suffer and lack for much of my life in a system that should have never been imposed upon us. We should have never been made into assets of the corporation. Our country should have not been corporatized. We shouldn't have been made into assets that 30-year bonds were issued against our strawman names, that we never receive any of those monies, and somebody else is profiting off our lives. That's what they're doing. They're profiting off your life, and you are not. And that's where we are, friends. You're a human slave inside of a system that is a fake matrix, inverted. So friends, I hope you're well. I hope for freedom for all humanity soon. I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NPMP News, signing off for now.